The lawyer's voice cracked when he said my name. Not my sister's, mine. And suddenly, the room went silent, except for the steady beep of a hospice monitor and the sound of my mother's sharp inhale, the kind she made when something didn't go according to plan. Because that call wasn't supposed to happen. I was sitting in the parking lot of a grocery store when my phone rang. I remember that because my ice cream was melting in the passenger seat, and I almost let the call go to voicemail. The number was unfamiliar, out of state. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but something in my chest tightened, the way it had been doing for weeks, ever since Grandma was moved into hospice care. "Hello?" I said. There was a pause, papers shuffling, a quiet professional breath. "This is Mr. Collins. I'm calling regarding your grandmother, Eleanor Whitmore." I gripped the steering wheel. "She asked me to make a call today. To you." That was strange already. Grandma hadn't been speaking much lately, mostly sleeping, mostly drifting in and out. When she was awake, she held my hand and asked if I was eating enough, if I was still working too hard, if I was happy. She never mentioned paperwork. Okay, I said slowly. Mr. Collins continued, "Before I proceed, I need to confirm, are you aware of the inheritance your grandmother left you?" I laughed, a short, embarrassed sound. "Oh, no, I think you have the wrong person." He didn't laugh back. "No," he said gently, "I don't." My first thought wasn't money. It was my parents' living room, the beige couch, the way my mom folded her hands when she lied, the way my dad avoided eye contact when things got uncomfortable. 2 weeks earlier, they'd called a family meeting. My sister sat there, keys dangling from her fingers, trying and failing to hide her smile. "We wanted to surprise you," Mom said, her voice overly sweet. "Your sister needed a reliable car, something safe." Dad nodded, and with Grandma's situation, well, it made sense. I remember blinking. With Grandma's situation, what? They exchanged a look. That look, the one that always meant the decision had already been made. "She won't need the money anymore," Mom said. "And we're family. It stays in the family." My sister chimed in, "It's not like you were using it." Using what? That's when I found out. My inheritance, the one Grandma had quietly set aside years ago, the one she'd told me about in hushed conversations when my parents weren't around. The one meant for security, she'd said, just in case life gets heavy. They used it. Not for emergencies, not for medical bills, but for a brand new SUV parked proudly in their driveway, still smelling like leather and entitlement. When I objected, Mom frowned like I was being dramatic. "You always make things difficult," she said, and I believed her, like I always did. Until now, because Mr. Collins cleared his throat and said the words that flipped everything upside down. "Your grandmother was informed yesterday that the funds were accessed without her authorization." I closed my eyes. "She was not pleased," he added carefully. The ice cream had fully melted by then. I didn't notice. "She asked me to make one call," he said, "and she was very clear about who should receive it." Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments about which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. I swallowed hard. What did she say? There was another pause. And then, she said, "It's time they learn." And in that moment, I realized my family thought the story was already over, but Grandma was still writing the ending. I didn't drive home after that call. I sat there, engine off, phone pressed to my ear long after Mr. Collins stopped speaking. The world outside my windshield kept moving, shopping carts, car doors, normal life, while mine cracked open in slow motion. "She's awake right now, if you want to come." I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my sister. For once, I didn't ask permission. The hospice facility smelled like disinfectant and flowers that were trying too hard to feel cheerful. Soft lighting, low voices, the kind of place where time slows down whether you want it to or not. Grandma lay in the bed near the window, smaller than I remembered, paler, but her eyes, sharp as ever, tracked me the second I stepped inside. "Well," she said, her voice raspy but amused, "you took your time." I laughed, then immediately cried. She squeezed my hand with surprising strength. "She thinks I don't know," she said quietly, glancing toward the door. "Your parents." I nodded. "They told me you wouldn't need the money anymore." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I may be dying, but I'm not dead, and I don't like thieves." That word landed heavy. Thieves. She asked me to pull the chair closer. Her breathing wasn't steady, but her mind was clear, dangerously clear. "I set that inheritance aside for you because you were always the one who didn't ask, you didn't demand, you didn't guilt, you didn't manipulate." I thought of my sister's SUV, the glossy paint, the way she revved the engine like it was a trophy. I told her they said it was a family decision. Grandma let out a humorless chuckle. Funny how family decisions never include the person they're stealing from. She closed her eyes for a moment, gathering strength. "I called my lawyer yesterday. Your parents didn't just overstep, they committed fraud." My stomach dropped. "They had power of attorney for medical decisions, not financial. They knew that." I opened my mouth to speak, but she raised a finger. She said, "I know what you're thinking. You don't want trouble. You don't want drama. You don't want to be the bad one." She squeezed my hand again. "But they already made you that, didn't they?" Memories rushed in. Birthdays where my sister got more. Conversations where my concerns were brushed aside. The constant message, "Don't rock the boat." "I'm tired, but I'm not done." That's when she told me about the second document, the one no one else knew about. "There's a clause," she said, "contingency. If funds are accessed improperly, ownership transfers immediately, and penalties apply." My heart pounded. "Penalties?" She smiled faintly. "The kind that come with lawyers and courts." I left hospice an hour later, my head spinning. And that's when my phone started blowing up. Mom first. "Where are you?" she snapped the second I answered. "Why didn't you tell us you were going to see her?" Dad next. "This is inappropriate," he said. "You're upsetting her." Then my sister. A picture, texted without explanation. Her new SUV, parked in the driveway, captioned with one word, "Mine." I stared at the screen, anger and sadness tangling together. They still thought they'd won. They didn't know Grandma had already made the call. They didn't know the paperwork was in motion. They didn't know the car wasn't really hers anymore. And as I pulled into my apartment parking lot, another message came through, this time from Mr. Collins. "We'll be filing tomorrow morning. Be prepared." I sat there in the dark, phone glowing in my hand, realizing something for the first time. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about truth. It was about consequences, and whether my family was ready for what happens when the quiet one finally stops staying quiet. Because once the papers were filed, there would be no undoing what Grandma had set in motion. The filing happened faster than I expected. By noon the next day, Mr. Collins called to confirm everything had been submitted, formal notice, supporting documents, and a request for immediate action. His voice was calm, practiced, the kind of calm that comes from knowing exactly how this ends. "You may receive some emotional responses," he warned. He wasn't wrong. My phone rang less than 10 minutes later. "Dad." I let it ring twice before answering. "What did you do?" he demanded, skipping every formality. "I didn't do anything. Grandma did." There was a sharp exhale on the other end. "Don't play dumb. We got a letter." A letter. Not a call, not a discussion, a legal notice. Mom grabbed the phone. I could tell by the way the tone shifted instantly. "How could you let this happen?" she said. "She's confused. She's sick. You took advantage of her." The accusation stung, but it also snapped something into place. She wasn't confused when you bought the car, I replied. She wasn't sick enough to stop you then. Silence. Then Mom said quietly, "We're returning the car." I almost laughed. That won't fix it. It's not about the car. Dad jumped back in. "You're blowing this out of proportion. Families don't sue each other." "She's not suing," I said. "She's correcting a mistake." That's when he said the thing I'd been dreading. "If you go through with this," he said, "don't expect things to go back to normal." Normal. The word hung there, heavy and ironic. Normal was being overlooked. Normal was swallowing anger. Normal was watching my sister get everything and being told to be grateful for less. "I don't think we ever had normal," I said, and hung up. An hour later, my sister showed up at my apartment. No warning, no text. She stood there in oversized sunglasses, arms crossed, keys clenched in her hand like a weapon. "Are you happy now?" she snapped. I stepped aside and let her in. The apartment felt too small for her energy. "You humiliated us," she said. "Do you know what people are saying?" "People?" I asked. "Or Mom and Dad?" She scoffed. "You always do this. You act innocent and let everyone else look bad." I leaned against the counter. "You took money that wasn't yours." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "It was going to be ours anyway. Grandma's money stays in the family." "I am family," I said. "You know what I mean." That's when the knock came. Sharp. Official. We both froze. I opened the door to find a man in a suit holding a clipboard. "I'm looking for," he checked the paper, "your sister." Her face drained of color. "This is a formal notice," he said, handing her an envelope, "regarding property purchased with misappropriated funds." She didn't take it. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said, her voice suddenly small. He waited. Calm. Patient. I watched her hand shake as she grabbed the envelope. The door closed. The room felt heavier. "They're just bluffing," she said, reading quickly. "This will go away." But her voice betrayed her, because it wouldn't go away. That evening, Hospice called. Grandma had taken a turn. I rushed over, heart racing, anger dissolving into fear. She was weaker this time, breathing shallow, but when she saw me, her eyes softened. "Did they get the notice?" she whispered. "Yes," I said. She nodded. "Good." I wanted to tell her to rest, to let it go, but she shook her head. "Listen to me," she said. "They're going to pressure you, guilt you, blame you." I swallowed hard. "You don't owe them silence," she continued, "and you don't owe them forgiveness before they earn it." Her grip tightened. "I made that call so you wouldn't have to spend your life apologizing for existing." A nurse appeared at the door. Visiting hours were ending. As I stood to leave, Grandma whispered one last thing. "Tomorrow," she said, "the real consequences begin." I walked out into the night, phone buzzing again in my pocket. This time, it was a message from an unknown number. "This is your sister's dealership. We need to speak with you immediately." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Because if the dealership was calling me, that meant the car was already becoming a problem, and the fallout was just getting started. The dealership didn't call by accident. I learned that the moment I returned the message and heard the strain in the man's voice on the other end. "We're trying to resolve a situation," he said carefully. "The payment for the vehicle your sister purchased has been flagged." Flagged. Not delayed, not questioned. Flagged. I drove to my parents' house that afternoon, not because I wanted another confrontation, but because I needed to see their faces when the reality finally landed. The SUV was gone. The driveway sat empty, pale concrete exposed like something had been ripped away too quickly. Inside, the house felt tense, too quiet. Mom was pacing the kitchen, phone glued to her hand. Dad sat at the table, staring at nothing, his jaw locked tight. "They took it," Mom said the second she saw me. "Like criminals, like we did something wrong." "You did," I replied. She spun on me. She already loved that car. That word again, loved, as if love could erase theft. Dad finally spoke. The dealership says the funds were frozen mid-transaction. They want repayment or they'll pursue legal action. I leaned against the doorway. And, he said bitterly, they want the full amount, immediately. Silence swallowed the room. Mom's voice dropped. Your grandmother did this, from her deathbed. She's still alive and very aware. Mom's eyes flashed. She's punishing us. No, I thought, she's protecting me. My sister arrived minutes later, eyes red, makeup smeared, fury barely contained. You told them to come after me, she accused, pointing at me like I'd pulled the trigger myself. I didn't tell anyone anything, I said calmly. The money trail did. She laughed, sharp, brittle. You always play the victim. You act like you were robbed. You were gifted a car with stolen money. There's a difference. That's when the email came through. Dad's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it, then paled. What? Mom asked. He turned the screen toward us. Subject, Notice of Audit, Estate of Eleanor Whitmore. I felt my stomach drop. An audit meant scrutiny, not just the car, everything. Bank records, transfers, signatures. Mom sank into a chair. They're going to tear us apart. My sister whispered, This is your fault. Before I could respond, Hospice called again. Grandma was declining fast. I drove there alone this time, rain streaking the windshield, thoughts racing faster than traffic. When I reached her room, the lights were dimmer. Machines hummed softly. The air felt heavier. She opened her eyes when I sat beside her. They're scared now, she said faintly. Yes, I replied. They are. She smiled, not cruelly, but with relief. Good, she whispered. Fear makes people honest. I held her hand as she slept, wondering how someone so small could shake so many foundations. When I left, my phone buzzed again. A voicemail from my mother. Her voice was trembling, not angry, not accusing, begging. Please, she said, tell her to stop this. Tell her we're sorry. We'll fix it. We'll give you the money. I listened twice. They didn't want forgiveness. They wanted escape. That night, Mr. Collins called one last time. There's something else you should know, he said. Your grandmother amended her will. My heart raced. Amended how? She added a condition, he replied. If anyone contests her decisions, they receive nothing. I closed my eyes, because I already knew what my parents were planning next. They weren't done fighting. They were about to make the worst mistake of their lives. And Grandma, quiet, sharp, unstoppable, even from hospice, had planned for that too. They did contest it. Of course they did. 3 days after Grandma's will was amended, my parents hired an attorney, not a quiet one, not a cautious one, the kind who sends letters written to intimidate, not negotiate. They called it undue influence. They said I manipulated a dying woman. They said Grandma was confused. They said the money was already spent and reversing it would cause irreparable harm. Irreparable. That word followed me into the hospice room the next morning. Grandma was barely awake now, her breathing shallow, her skin paper-thin, but when I leaned close and told her what they'd done, her eyes opened, sharp, focused. "They're signed it," she whispered. Yes. Her lips curved into the smallest smile. "Good," she whispered. "Then it's done." I didn't understand what she meant until the lawyer arrived. Mr. Collins stood at the foot of the bed, with another man beside him, older, more formal. The judge expedited the hearing, given your grandmother's condition. My parents arrived 10 minutes later. Mom looked like she hadn't slept. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. My sister wasn't there, too busy trying to salvage her credit, I later learned. The judge appeared on a tablet screen. No drama, no speeches, just facts. Power of attorney abuse, unauthorized fund transfers, clear documentation, recorded statements from hospice staff, bank logs showing signatures that didn't match. Then, the final blow, the amended will, the clause. Mr. Collins read it slowly. If any beneficiary attempts to challenge or undermine this will or its distributions, their share is immediately forfeited and redistributed to the sole remaining beneficiary. The judge looked at my parents. Did you file a contest? Their attorneys hesitated. Yes, Your Honor. The judge nodded once. Then this matter is resolved. That was it. No appeals, no second chances. My parents lost everything Grandma had left them. Every dollar, every asset, every safeguard they assumed was theirs. It all came to me. Grandma passed away that evening. I was holding her hand when it happened. She didn't say anything at the end. She didn't need to. Her work was finished. The fallout came fast. The dealership repossessed the car officially. My sister moved back in with my parents, furious and humiliated. Their attorney dropped them after payment failed. Friends stopped calling. And for the first time in my life, no one blamed me, because the truth was documented, stamped, final. Months later, I visited Grandma's house, the one she left me with the money. In her bedroom, I found a letter tucked inside her jewelry box. It was addressed to me. You were never weak, it read. You were quiet, and they mistook that for permission. I made that call because love isn't measured by who takes the most, but by who protects the one who never asks. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back. I didn't cut my family off completely, but I stopped shrinking for them. I stopped apologizing for standing still while they tried to push past me.
And they never tried again. Because sometimes justice doesn't come with yelling or revenge. Sometimes it comes with one calm phone call from a hospice room, and the courage to finally let the truth speak louder than fear.